Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series titled Success Frameworks, Mark DeFrancesco of MDF Painting will be discussing his journey from young painter to veteran business guru. It is a 5-part series. In episode 1, Mark discussed his journey into the painting industry and the many unique advantages this industry provides. In episode 2, this episode, Mark will cover the most important lessons he's learned over the past 30 years in the industry, including the most common mistakes painting companies make and how you can avoid them. In episode 3, Mark will dive into his sales and marketing mindset and the mental frame he has used to achieve massive success. In episode 4, Mark will lay out sales fundamentals and deliver an action plan for how you can sell effectively starting today. And in episode 5, the final episode, Mark will walk through his vision for not only the future of MDF painting, but for the painting industry as a whole and how you can capitalize on the upcoming disruptions. If you want to ask Mark questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so in our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group, or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Mark questions directly by tagging him with your question so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode. The 30 years is a long time to be in the same industry, so you probably have some battle scars.
Yes. Many scars, many mistakes. I feel like in looking topically at what we're going to talk about, I was like, mistakes. This is an easy one. There's probably too many for me to fit into this short time frame. But I have some good ones, I think, to review with you.
I think I'm a big podcast listener in addition to running this podcast. And I think something's either working for you or it's working on you. And so when things are a complete disaster, let's say we create a new initiative and try something and realize we had overlooked, maybe reality in some way. I try to think, okay, it's working on me. Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, you're almost the product, because how good you are is how good your business is.
That's 100% true. And whatever your present reality is in the business, that has been manifested from everything that you are and that you're doing. And so if it's not working exactly how you want it to work, whether it's processes or profit or different things that you have in place, happy customers, happy employees, it is symptomatic of you as the owner. And what you're manifesting has to adjust in order for you to reach the level of success that you want.
100%. So let's get into some of these, I guess. I don't know how you want to approach it.
So I probably logically will approach it on my current painting journey. And I still feel like I'm maybe halfway through my painting journey. I feel like my first major mistake was a process mistake. I started out, or processes, I should say. I started out just reacting to what the market needed. I wanted to make money, so I would rush to customers, try my best to get jobs, do the jobs as well as I could, and rinse and repeat. And there wasn't a lot of process involved. There wasn't really detailed marketing in place where I was dialed in and I was measuring things that were happening. There certainly wasn't a sales process. Now I do sales training, but then it was like I would show up and the accomplishment was like to provide an estimate. Was I able to give them a price and for something that they really wanted done, and hopefully I could achieve it at that price. And I don't want to say it was complete guessing. Even from the beginning, I was using a lot of the production rates from PDCA at the time. But there wasn't a heavy system in place. We would get to production and it was just kind of fast and furious. I mentioned we started out in the first 18 months, we pretty much became over $1 million company. And back then, that was a big threshold to meet. And
I think
I
it
raced to
still is.
hit,
But yeah,
I
the
raced, it
and it was
still is,
bigger.
but I raced to
Yep.
hit that total revenue number without really having a strong foundation. If each of your departments doesn't have, if there's not heavy in process, you're going to falter.
Yep.
And so some of the ways that it really hurt me was scheduling. So right away, scheduling was a nightmare because we didn't really have a system in place. Right away, sales became a nightmare. I don't think I realized it at the time, but I was landing maybe jobs that other people didn't want to do for certain reasons. Maybe that was that customer that was definitely going to make us better, or that project that was actually misquoted because it led to a lot more work than what it looked like on the surface. I was just making a lot of rookie mistakes across the board. In the marketing realm, back then there was Yellow Pages and it was a printed telephone book, and they would come to your office and how early can you get in that section? Could be the front of the section. Could you be a colored ad? And the market then,
A painting.
yes, yes, AAAA1 painting. And so it became like the sales pitch for every salesperson I met with was, well, this is going to cost you $3,000 and you get a job for $3,000. So you really only need to get one job for this to make sense. So go ahead and do this, right? And that was the standard, and people probably still hear that today, but it's just not the way you should be analyzing your marketing spend. And at that point, I was doing things fast and furiously in marketing, and I was overspending. My CPE was too high, my return on investment wasn't high enough. And it was just messy. So we got there, but I almost describe it as like the wheels were ready to fall off. Like we were just
Yep.
going really fast, and mechanically we weren't built to really run that race. So if I can talk to my younger self, I would say take a breath, grow this thing incrementally, be process driven. It's not enough to read the books. Yes, I was reading eMyth Manager. I was doing these things. And a lot of people out there fall into, fear of missing out and this analysis paralysis. They learn everything, they study everything, but learning it is great. It's different than implementing it. So to learn it may take you a minute or an hour or a week, but to implement it may take you a lifetime. So start implementing it a little bit at a time. And when I say implementing it, creating processes for each of your departments that are built to last. When I started my business and it was literally me putting flyers in mailboxes, doing the sales appointment, doing the painting, it was me to grow it into a 10 or $20 million a year residential painting business. You have to have systems that are built to last. And you can start putting those systems in place when you're really, really small and just nurture them as you grow. So everything that we do now is department driven. Was this handled by marketing? What are the metrics? What are the key scores? How do we see winning and losing in marketing? Then it gets passed to sales. How do you actually execute a sales appointment? What does a great one look like? What does a lousy one look like? What does winning and losing look like? What does production look like? What's a great customer experience from beginning to end look like? What's a lousy customer experience look like? How does every teammate know what winning and losing looks like in either a metric or some type of outcome that's obvious for them? Then you kick it to accounting. What are the numbers I should be looking at so I can make actionable decisions, not just all the numbers there are to look at, which make my head spin. What are my actionable numbers that I should be looking at, focusing on every week, every month? Um, HR, hiring people is so critical. How you recruit and how you hire people is another mistake I made. I didn't focus on that until many years into the business. If you start by focusing on your processes and by focusing on how specifically how you recruit and hire people, your growth is you'll have a higher growth trajectory. It's gonna happen faster for you and you'll just have a better business for it. So what are the systems in place to recruit people? Is it happening 365 days a year? What does your hiring process look like? Is it more than, hey, we really need someone, so we get someone in for an interview and then we set them loose to work? It has to be very detailed and methodical if you want to attract winners and maintain winners on your team. And then, finally, service and maintenance work. I mean, in residential repaint, we overlook maintenance work as a rule. I've looked to people all over the country to try to see who has a great maintenance program, and I haven't seen one yet. And so we started developing, maintenance for us years ago, and it's worked really well. I want to be your painting contractor for life. It doesn't mean I want to see you in 7 or 8 years. I want to see you next spring. I want to see you again in the winter. I want to see you in the fall. I want to help you. There's certainly things that I can do as a painting contractor to maintain that home. And I think we mentioned these in the first episode a bit, but simple things from gutter cleanings to soft washes to touch-up painting, to carpentry work to inspections where you're measuring moisture on the exterior of a house or you're looking for cracks and deterioration on the interior of a house. Those are all things that could be put into a formalized maintenance program. So those are the main departments, the way I see it. You have marketing, you have sales, you have production, you have HR, you have accounting, and you have maintenance and service. And you have to get dialed in on the processes and the scores, the scoreboards for each of those departments. So I totally missed that. It took me probably 15 years to start really figuring out that I had to get better process wise.
Yeah. Man, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. So the let's dive into a couple of things here. So we have marketing, sales, production, HR, accounting, and then the maintenance program, maintenance service. For somebody listening to this, where would they start? If they think they're kind of in the position you are, where it's a little bit of a free for all, would you prioritize certain departments over others?
Yes, I would prioritize production and sales. And if I think about it, if you look at your business as a machine, as your machine grows, who are you going to hire? You're going to hire more painters and you're going to hire more salespeople. You could be a $25 million painting business, and how many people do you think you have working in marketing? One, maybe two. Okay. How many painters do you have? How many more painters do you need at 20 million than you would at 500,000? A lot more. How many more salespeople will you need? A lot more. So those are the two departments that are constantly going to have to hire more people. And so if that's the case, don't I want to get dialed in as quickly as possible on the processes in those two departments if that's where most of the people work? That's why I would start there. I don't want to say that one department is more significant than another. I mean, these are all gears. You should picture your business machine as gears that work together. And if one gear is faulty and is not working right, it's going to negatively affect the whole machine. If your HR is not recruiting and bringing through great people, then production is going to really falter. And so is sales. If sales can't sell, production doesn't have enough to do. If production's lousy at what they do, there's going to be too much burden put on marketing because now you're not getting enough repeat and referral business, which marketing needs to stay within winning numbers.
Sure.
So it all fits together. So I would start in production and then sales. And so production, what are some of the big things that you should look at? You should be looking at how you create an amazing customer experience. It starts with scheduling. We often jump right to pre-job meeting, but it really starts with scheduling. So what happens the moment a person signs a contract and gives you a deposit? You have to have touch points with that customer. I think Jason Phillips, my friend Jason Phillips, refers to this as hugs, or at one point he was referring to it as hugs. It means touch points where you're in my future calendar, and once a week we are touching you either via email, phone, or text message, or a combination of those to say, hey, you're on our radar. Your project is getting ready to launch. Okay, so scheduling is critical. Secondly, how you start the job. Pre-job meetings, I'm not going to go deep in that here. Everyone does them. Some companies do them better than others. But think in terms of creating processes. You want to have checklists for every single thing that you do. How you're communicating with the customer on the first day on the job should be in a checklist format. how you're executing every day on the job. Are you empowering your customers? Are you deputizing them to help you in the management of the project? Let's face it, in residential repaint, the quality of the interaction with the customer is in large part due to the customer's expectations. So, in other words, we could perform at the same level for 10 different customers. And the customer who's kind of like just happy to change the color or they're happy that we're there, we're going to feel like a level 10 to them just by showing up. But the customer who really is really picky and is challenging, they might see the same job that got a level 10 for the last five customers. Now that job may feel like a 4 or 5 to them. So I want to know right from the beginning what my customers' expectations are. I want to know every day, how are we doing with their expectations? And how do you do that? You do that with 5-minute check-ins from your crew leader. You do that by asking them to complain to you. You say right in the pre-job meeting, I want to have all A's on my report card. I want to do the best possible job here. In order to do that, I need to communicate with you. I need you to be comfortable telling me anything that you see that you need corrected or any questions, concerns, anything you have. We have to have communication. This is the format with which we'll do that. And just set a process that allows that to happen each and every day. You know, in our business, we want the crew leader to communicate every single day with the customer. We also want the office as support to communicate every single day with the customer. And we find that with those two, communication channels, we get pretty immediate feedback from most clients, and it allows us to really give a great experience to them. Um, the same thing, how you finish a job matters, right? How you finish a day matters. And they should be checklist driven processes.
I
So
think
I would say in production, those are the main things that you would do right away. This way, as you hire crew 2, crew 3, crew 4, crew 5, they're following the same system. And although they'll have different talents and skills, you should be able to give the customer a similar customer experience. You don't want to have 10 different crews that give the customer a different experience every time. This is why we're solely W-2 right now. And I've been I've been on a subcontractor model in the past. I did have subs for approximately 10 years. And there are pros and cons to the two models. We're not going to discuss that here, but find a way, whether you're on a sub model or a direct employee model, to make sure that there's processes and checklists in place inside the field.
yeah, yeah, I think the idea of focusing on the process from how many people are going to be in each department, is kind of a really critical number because you don't want to scale chaos. And so productions and sales is going to scale. And then production is also going to be, and even sales is going to be the customer experience. So you also
Correct.
don't want to scale garbage and burn your reputation.
And it's also costing you money. So, one is offensive and one is defensive. So your production is defense. So if you can get the job done on time, and so it's happy and under. I remember Kevin Nolan 25 years ago saying happy and under, happy and under. And it's that simple. It's happy and under. Is the customer happy and is under on job hours? If you do that, the system creates money, which you need to continue to propagate the system, right? And so in sales, it's offense. If you become really good at the same day close, you can charge more money per man hour, which most people don't realize, but that's a critical element to being successful in this business, is charging more money per man hour. He who charges the most per man hour could pay his painters the best. He who pays his painters the best can have the best painters. He who has the best painters will have the best reputation. So these things fit together, but sales is an offensive minded department. And so the sooner you become great at that, your charge rate goes up, you produce more same day closes, and you give production better and better jobs to work with. You also help marketing. So as a marketing guru, if you're feeding leads to a terrible sales organization, no type of marketing is going to work well, right? You're even trying to help your clients be like, let me give you the basis of try to have some type of sales process, because otherwise it's wasteful of resources to just feed more leads into a really poor sales system.
Yeah.
So getting really dialed in salesmanship matters. And it took me a long time to do this. I probably have read 50 books on salesmanship over the years. And I've gone through painstaking lengths to create videos and information about it because I wanted to train my own team. And I know that when you train people, you have to do it in a systematic way. I can't just have Johnny ride along with me for 2 weeks and all of a sudden he's a salesman. And then a year and a half later, have Tim ride along with me and he's a salesman. It'll be two different things.
Osmosis.
Yes, osmosis does not work for this, or listen, if you're going to have one estimator that's like your son-in-law, maybe we could do this and it's an ongoing, but if you have real employees, you have to have a system, you have to have training, workbooks and videos and checklists and a system they could actually follow so that everyone could become great eventually at the system. So in salesmanship, it's about pre-positioning. It's about, and I'll just give it a quick, should I give it a quick
Yeah,
rundown?
let's hit it.
So the process there should be strong on pre-positioning, reaching out to the customer before you actually physically meet them to show credibility. Okay. It should be obviously showing up on time, looking the part, being friendly, thanking them, maybe give them a gift. You want to set an agenda every time. People get when someone comes to give them a quote, a contractor, they don't know what they're going to get. Like the doorbell rings and it's not always this defined professional process. It could be a guy who's going to text message them a price, or it could be someone super, super professional. You want it to be super professional if it's you. So set the agenda. This is what I have planned for us today to get the most out of our meeting. And then you ask a lot of questions. You want to be consultative. How can I help a person solve their problem unless I ask a lot of questions and listen? So asking and listening is a massive part of a great sales process. Another thing that has to happen in the same day close is you have to be able to create a price. So there is Paint Scout, there's Estimate Rocket, there is a myriad of different softwares you can buy. You can also do it by hand. You could do it on pen and paper, you could do it in a computer, right? But you have to have production rates that multiply into a charge rate so you can actually give a price so that you look at something and you can say, hey, this is $10,000. So that has to be part of your process. And then finally, you have to be able to have a closing conversation with them. You have to close them. And that comes from being able to present the price in such a way that it solves their needs, right? And fixes everything they need fixed, not just from a scope standpoint, but really solving what they really want. Okay. And then it has to be able to walk them through a conversation that basically holds their hand and helps them make the best buying decision for them. You don't ever sell anyone anything. You can help them make a good buying decision. All right. And you position yourself to be the solution, to be what they buy. And so when those things are dialed in, and I should, mention follow up. Follow up is part of selling. So is prospecting. Those are also part of being a really professional salesperson, but those are all system driven. So when you create a process, whether it's my process or someone else's or your own, have a process and immediately start coaching people in the process. And you know how you'll know if the process is good? If you win. So if salespeople can be happy about going to work every day and they can make really good money and the customers are happy, then you won.
Yep.
In production, if the crew leaders can make really good money and the projects come out really nice and they last a long time and the customers are happy, you've won. And so sometimes we overcomplicate it, but we oftentimes miss just setting up a process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is it's a big, big problem in the industry. And I think you're focused there on the pre-position. So people have to know, like, and trust you. That's for Painter Marketing Pros. We built a CRM and a sales system to help with that because we built that 5 years ago. And we rolled
Yeah.
out with all of our partners. But it makes such an impact. And yeah, like you said, good marketing will not overcome a horrific sales process. The only way to compete at that point is you get the lead, you show up, hopefully on time or close on time. You haven't communicated at all. You are a commodity at best at that point because you haven't differentiated. And so, of course, the only way you win the job is you compete on price. And now you run a low profit organization, and that's a stressful, not very fun life.
Well, it's a recipe to go out of business. And
Yeah.
so, and you really like you have multiple stakeholders. Your stakeholders are your employees, they're your customers, and internally, it's yourself and building your wealth into ownership, right? So if you're not serving the employees, you really can't serve the customers. And if the customers aren't served well, you're not going to be profitable. So it all is very interconnected. And I don't want to jump deep into like marketing. I know that's your wheelhouse, but I will say this, strong sales allows you to have a lot more room to do more in marketing and actually to
Mhm.
make more trial and error mistakes, which is part of everybody's marketing journey. You can't do marketing and think that you're only going to do the things that work amazingly well, even if you hire Brandon, and you're never going to do any of the things that don't work perfectly because it changes from season to season, it changes from year to year, and it changes geographically. So there's never like one right way. Whenever I hear people jumping on like the next shiny object in marketing, I'm just saying be a little bit careful, like be cautiously optimistic, try it and measure it. And if you're measuring everything, then you actually know. But going back to the relationship between sales and marketing, because I think it's absolutely critical, we measure ADL, average dollars per lead. This means your total dollars sold in any defined period divided by the number of appointments you ran, the number of estimates. And this is your ADL. So the higher your ADL is, it's an indicator of how good you are as a salesperson. Well, the higher the ADL is, the more you can spend in cost per estimate and still be super profitable as a business. So think about it. If you have great salesmanship, you're more likely to afford things like billboards or television advertising or things that are like next level that are usually reserved for bigger, badder painting companies, right? And the digital things you're doing, the print things, you can do more of them and you can do more of them. I don't want to say with more error, but with less of a return and still be super profitable. And that's what makes you famous in your market. So no one talks about this. Like everyone is so worried about this is my cost per estimate, this is my return. But part of what's happening when you're spending marketing dollars is you're becoming famous or you're not. And he who could afford to spend the most will become famous. That's it.
Yep. Local
What
celebrity.
allows you to spend the most? Having the most past customers, having the highest charge rate, having the best salesmanship, and giving the market what they want. It's a great cycle. So if you do all those things right, you can afford to become famous faster and spend more money. People say, how much should I spend in marketing? You should spend as much as you possibly can as long as you're getting your estimates at your average allowable cost. How do I know my average allowable cost? Well, it's related to your ADL, your sales metric. If you don't know how well you're selling, then I don't know. I can't tell you. If you're really lousy at selling, maybe you could afford $100 a lead or $80. If you're really great at selling, you might be able to afford $350 per estimate
Yeah.
in our business. So processes are everything. And the third, so I would start with production, I'd go to sales next, and I'd immediately go to HR. And HR, and some people will say you should start with HR. The only reason I don't start with HR is again, a $20 million company has one or two people working in their HR department. So, and a lot of stuff is automated now. You have Indeed, you have LinkedIn, you have Recruiter Box has changed names 5 different times. There's a lot of software out there. I use Factorial right now.
Mm.
So I put all my system into Factorial software, and you're able to manage Factorial in about 10 hours a week for a company that's doing over $5 million a year. And that means my company is constantly recruiting and hiring crew leaders 365 days of the year and constantly recruiting and hiring salespeople. We try to do 2 sales hiring moments throughout the year, one in the fall, one in the spring. And this is defined training weeks that we put in the schedule to onboard people. And so throughout the year, we basically hire people to that moment. Okay. And we're doing that all year long. And it's still something that's managed in 10 hours or so a week
Yeah.
of administrative management.
It's
But
impressive.
that's super critical. Like if you're not, we have 13-step process for how we hire every position. And from a phone screening to drug test, background check, homework assignments, personality quiz, in-person, multiple in-person meetings, group interview, check with their past employer. If it sounds complicated, it's not complicated. It's simple, but there's a lot to it. and it takes a long time to implement. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want to deceive you. Start. You have to start. Things that are worthwhile, they take time and energy and effort. So the sooner you get started, the easier the path will be for you.
Yeah, 100%. So Mark, you've said a lot of good sales stuff, really good stuff. And I think you said a couple things that you just kind of almost presumed or assumed, and I just want to highlight them because I think they're so important. So you had mentioned same day close, like closing in the home. I think that that's something that most people don't even try to do. So they're just going to go home and they're going to email the estimate or go back to the office, email it 24, 48 hours later. Obviously, that's wrong for all kinds of reasons. And I know we're not super diving into sales right now. You talked about, we mentioned the pre-positioning. You also mentioned providing a gift
Yeah.
to somebody, which obviously could trigger the law of reciprocity. It's a very strong law in our DNA. If somebody gives us something, we feel obligated to kind of repay that debt. I think there are evolutionary reasons for that. What can you dive into what you mean? What gift are you giving? Who are you giving it to? What does that look like?
So what we do right now for the gifts, so the gifting was really hard for me because I'm not great at getting gifts. I prefer not to get gifts. I birthdays, things like that. I'm just like, it's about my family. It's about the kid. It's about let's do something. It's not really about me. And I've kind of always been that way. So I don't love getting gifts. I'm also not great at giving gifts. The flip side of that. So but actually in my business, I've been giving out gifts since I started. I used to give out these weird t-shirts so we're in Connecticut, and on the back of it, it would have, this is totally probably illegal, but I would have the Yukon Husky logo because Yukon basketball was always good in our
You've been
state.
in partnership with them since the beginning.
Yes, from the beginning, I've been in partnership with them. Um, and then I'd have my logo, and I would give out these T-shirts that said, I support two winning local teams. And I don't know where this came from, but I was just young and hungry and doing anything. And so I bought these T-shirts super cheap, and I gave out thousands and thousands and thousands of T-shirts. So a couple of years ago, I actually met someone that was wearing my T-shirt, and it was like the coolest moment. I was like, I thought everyone just threw those away. And and they were just out and about wearing the t-shirt. So I've always given something. I had a friend who was on one of these bakery shows. She had started a bakery, like a local friend, and she became famous on Cupcake Wars or something like that. And she would make cookies for me that looked like my logo. So then I started giving out cookies when she was really famous in our local area. And then we've now morphed to gift cards. So we went to dog treats, we went to coloring books for kids, which we liked, but it was a little bit hard to manage just because, do you have kids? Do you have dogs? We didn't want to become creepy with people. Um,
Asking so many questions.
here, I see you have five kids. I brought all these coloring books in my clown mask. We
Hop
we
out of the
stayed away
van,
from
got all
that.
the coloring books.
But you know what it was too? We were giving out cookies with little stickers. I mean, you could give out anything. The idea is to keep it small. It was always under $5, even when it was a t-shirt. Um, and I don't think it matters so much, but salespeople think it does, right? And they start saying, "Well, I gave them cookies with a sticker, an MDF sticker, and they said I'm gluten free. I don't want that. I would never eat that poison or something." And now the whole meeting is thrown off a little bit, and the vibe is wrong. So I think it's a bit of an excuse because I've given people cookies and they say, I can't eat that. And I just smile and say, I understand. I'm watching my weight too, or something. It's a
Sure.
cute gesture, but the thought still counts. So what we do now is we do Amazon gift cards, $5 each, and we put our logo on them. And you can buy these in bulk from Amazon directly, and they'll print your logo on it, and it's $5. And it's easy for our people to carry around when they were having dog treats and cookies and all kinds of
Love
things.
it.
It was just one more thing to worry about. And salespeople need to be focused on the close. So we've been on the $5 gift cards for probably 2 years, and I feel like it works really well. I don't see us moving from that because it's just a gesture. It just says, hey, we appreciate you having us out here. We know you have many contractors to choose from, and we really appreciate being here. Thank you so much. It's a token of our gratitude, token of our appreciation. Very simple. Hey, and they're a little stunned. So another thing I like, I don't want to go deep in my sales process here, but um, when it stuns them, it's our moment to say, is there a place we can sit and talk for 5 minutes before we look at everything and before we walk around together? And a lot of times, salespeople have trouble sitting down with a homeowner, And it's critical. It's very hard to have a great consultative conversation without sitting down. It's hard to have someone sign up for a $20,000 job standing up. It just is. Like, look up the statistics, sales statistics. You need to be sitting down. When you buy a car, you go into the separate room right in the desk and you sit down and you sign the paperwork. When you buy homes or properties, you go sit in the lawyer's office, right? And you sit down and you sign everything. It's very odd for you to buy something for $20,000 standing up, walking around in the sun. It just,
Yeah.
so the card actually stuns people because they're not used to getting gifts. And it opens that pathway to say, this is how we do it. We're going to sit down, and people go along with a strong frame. So again, I
Love
keep
that.
morphing into sales, but the gifting is important.
One thing you also said too, which I really like because I think this is often misunderstood, not even really thought about, is there is no marketing budget. So if you have a marketing budget, so there, and I want to preface that with cash is king. And
Yeah.
so if you don't have that much cash or a smaller company, if you start pouring a bunch of money into marketing, marketing is really a leading indicator of success. You don't give, a bunch of money into ads and then you get the dollars back the same day, unless you're doing e-commerce or something like that, which we're not. So marketing is a leading indicator of success. You run out of money, you run out of business, and don't do that. But that being said, if you're investing into marketing, and let's say the painter, then there's production issues, right? Can you actually produce all the work that you're selling? Do you actually have enough salespeople to go out there and bid on all those projects? But if your marketing is working in the sense that you know your gross profit, you talked about your average dollar per lead, you understand what you can pay to acquire a customer on average and still be profitable, then your marketing budget isn't a budget. It's just whatever your business can sustain.
Correct.
However many salespeople you have, whatever channels are working, how many dollars can you put behind that channel before you maybe see diminishing returns? Can your production team keep up if you're starting to have to schedule people 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out? Now your close rate's going to decline. But this idea that's so prevalent in the painting space, like, hey, I need 10x. Oh, that we tried this one thing and it was only 5x. That was garbage. That was terrible. It's just so wrong. And so
Correct.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
So, I mean, two other things I want to point out because I think they're powerful, and it's a simple concept, and people hear me talk about this and they're blown away, but it's super simple. Your whole business is a machine that a dollar comes into, you spend a dollar on the front end, and at the end, we don't know what the heck's going to come out of it, honestly. And so here's the thing. If at the end of that dollar being spent, a dollar 20 comes out of the machine, you'll probably become very wealthy if you could do this for a long time. And it sounds like, oh, that should be so easy to do, right? It only happens if all the departments are in alignment and if the processes are tight and things are working in synergy. It is very, very, very easy to put a dollar in and have 98 cents come out. And if you put a dollar in and 98 cents comes out, you'll be bankrupt.
Yep.
So the difference between bankruptcy and wealth is razor thin here. And it sometimes is unfair to one specific portion of your business. Like, you could be doing well in marketing, believe it or not, and losing money because the machine is not functioning properly. It has nothing to do with marketing. Or the salesmanship is great, but the machine is broken. So unless you have synergy in all these departments working together, it's going to be painful. And that's why I think focusing on processes early and often and all the time is important. One of our core values is improve or die. And that's my way of saying, look at your damn processes every single day. Look at yourselves as individuals every day and figure out how to get a little bit better. So I have really good processes now in MDF painting, but in 20 years, they'll be way better because I've just decided that that's our operating system. We have to get these incrementally better. So think about that. A dollar in equals what amount out? It doesn't have to be scary, but if you're not seeing it equal positive money out, you have the best market in the world, the best sales in the world. It's not going to work for you. Something else is wrong. And the other thing is what you mentioned, building with blocks is how I define it. The only limit you have to the amount of leads you could take in is how you built this machine. And you can't have too many salespeople, not enough painters, or too many painters and not enough salespeople, or too many leads and not enough salespeople. So they all have to fit together. So the sooner you realize how many leads equals one salesperson equals how many painters, the better off you'll be. And I call those blocks. So for us, it's approximately 600 leads equals one sales per person equals, 2.5 crews in our world right now because of our seasonality. Everybody's seasonality is different. If you have a wider season, it's less crews. So those are things I don't want to go deep in right now, but until you figure out the alignment of your blocks, you'll never be super profitable because that's how you grow the right way. You incrementally raise each of the blocks. If I take in 20% more leads, I have to have more sales capacity. With more
Yeah,
sales capacity, I have to have more production capacity.
I like that. I've not heard it laid out exactly like that. This 600 leads, one salesperson, 2.5 crews, and it's going to change by time of year. I think a very small percentage of our listeners probably have those metrics dialed in.
But they could easily dial them in. And if they do, they'll start to live by them. Those are the things that you do your quarterly planning with, your annual planning. Like that's how you grow a profitable business. I mean, there's no other way in this realm. And I love when I talk to clients of mine who are booked so far out and they're proud of this. And I'm like, listen, you have not enough production. So, like, your machine is playing great offense but there's no defense here. And defense wins championships, brother. So you better figure it out. Like, I don't want to be like 20 weeks out. That's insane to me, unless I built this machine that doesn't want to do volume. Otherwise, like, if my marketing and my sales is working at that level, I better be recruiting and hiring and creating a great system for painters to go win at.
Sure.
Or if I'm not, I've got to dial back. Eventually, if you operate out of sync like that, you'll evaporate profit. You just won't be profitable.
Yeah. So, Mark, we've talked about process, haven't talked a ton about people. You mentioned it, and it's a little bit of a trick question because obviously HR having a process there, a strong
Hmm.
process will help you get better people. But there's this, is it good people or good processes? Obviously, you need both over time. Which one do you think should be prioritized first?
Well, I mean, prevailing business wisdom would tell you that the asses in the seats are probably a little bit more important than the seat itself. So I would say the people are the most important, but it's a trick question because you have to have both.
Yeah,
So you can't just put a person in there when there's no seat and there's no process in place. So I think you have to work on both. It's easier to put the system and process in place and continue to perfect and edit the system than it is to find the perfect person.
sure.
So I hear people say, my whole business changed when I got into personality profiling or something like that. And yes and no. There's some truth to that because it's very rare in my experience that you have stars, like star performers. And you're right, if you can get one or two or three stars, it could change your business future. So how do you get one or two or three stars? It's a volume game. This is like the NFL draft or something. Like everybody thinks they're going to be great, and then it's a very small percentage of people go to the Hall of Fame. So if you're only hiring one painter at a time and you get one salesperson every 3 or 4 or 5 years, what are the chances you have a high performing sales team? Think about this. Like if
Yeah.
I have no sales people and I put all my eggs in this one salesperson basket and I have this one salesperson who I call an estimator, and then I suffer through him for 3 or 4 years because he's not as good at selling as I am. This sounds like a common story for many of our listeners. That's like you had one chance at getting that star quarterback. So you just went out there and took one guy out of a million and you thought it was going to work. It doesn't work that way. So, like, yes, you should have personality profiles in place. Yes, you can have a defined hiring process, but it's volume.
Yeah.
It's volume, baby. Do open houses, bring in 20 painters, test them all, make them do circle tests, make them go and do job trials for a day. And if you test 100 painters, you'll get five really good ones. If you test 10 painters, you might get zero. If you like salespeople are the best because we're so anti-hiring salespeople as an industry. It's so scary for us because we have no process. And it's like, go hire 10 of them. Well, 10, what would I do with 10? Don't hire one at a time. Like, and I preach this every day to people that I coach, hire in multiples, hire two at a time. If you're going to go through training, why would I want to go through training and have one person in the room when I can do the exact same training and have six people in the room? Well, I don't have enough leads. Call Brandon, get more leads. I mean, really, like teach them to prospect and follow up and do the system right. And they're not going to be doing 5 or 10 leads a day. I'm sorry, they're going to be doing two.
Yeah.
So dial it back and make more money. I mean, it's about profit at the end of the day. So it's about the asses, the people themselves, the personnel. It's about the seats. It's about the process. But in order to get the right people, I firmly believe you have to go through people. You
Sure.
you can't. It's like the person who's like, I'm gonna have my dream wife, and I'm gonna get my dream wife by having one date with one person one time, and that's it. What's the likelihood that that is your ideal person? I mean, I just don't buy that. Maybe this isn't reality TV. This is your business. This is your life. Like, test some people out. So when I have 100 salespeople come through my door, I'll be a massively successful sales organization. I just have to withstand becoming good at recruiting, hiring, and training.
Yep.
Repeat. Recruiting, hiring, training. Repeat. And what else? Keeping score. It's Major League Baseball. Like if your batting average is that bad, eventually they just put you in the minor leagues. That's it. It's driven by a metric on a screen. And so you have to take that into account in your business. I know we're mostly smaller businesses, so we're less metric driven than maybe Fortune 500 company. Everybody has a winning losing score. If they lose for too long, you coach them up until you coach them out. And that's it. But if you're not strong enough from recruit, hire, train, you're going to not make the hard decision of eliminating them from your organization because it's costly in labor and money and time to bring on a new person. So instead, you stay with mediocrity. You have to be willing to shuffle through people to be successful in this business, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like the building block analogy. I think we get so caught up in our businesses. We think it's some kind of special, special thing or we're a special snowflake or whatever it is. I think if we can kind of disconnect, detach, and just look at the business as, hey, it's this machine. It's got these various cogs. They work together. Are we
Yeah.
putting in the dollar and getting, $1.20 out or not? And then what do we need?
What's
Where,
broken?
what's broken? What are our weaknesses? And I think it's so hard. It's so hard, and that's where the quarterly planning, the annual planning, that kind of taking the retreats, taking some time.
Yeah.
It's so hard because we get so caught in the fire in the day to day to actually look at this objectively.
So another thing about like a keep an A player, I want to say one more thing
Yeah,
about that. Here's the thing. If you don't have good recruiting, hiring, training, and you don't keep score, which most painting contractors don't have all that figured out. If you don't do those things, what happens to an A player if they actually fall in your lap and start working for you? They end up leaving.
for sure.
So you don't have, A players like to work at places that are dynamic, where they're appreciated, where their skill set is valued, and where there's not this atmosphere of mediocrity. They want other people to be going out there and chasing greatness alongside them. So it's not just a personality profile. I could have the perfect personality profile. They come into my organization, but if I'm not built to touch greatness as an organization, they will not stay. And I think it's very simple. Recruit properly, hire properly, train properly, and then keep score. Because when you keep score and someone's not making the grade, you say, how can I help you make the grade? Essentially,
Yeah.
in a lot of different nurturing ways, ongoing training and support. And if they continually can't make the grade, they get changed for a new person. And eventually your organization becomes so strong. And one day you wake up and A players stay. And that's when magic happens. And so it's a combination of different things that come together.
Yeah, I think the another point that's overlooked a lot with the A players is they want to be recognized and rewarded and see the upside. And I think if you don't have a strong system, if you don't have KPIs, key performance indicators, if you don't have metrics that you know you're trying to hit in each of these departments, when someone comes through and they just blow it out of the water, they're phenomenal, and then
Right.
they're next to somebody who's subpar, you might not even be distinguishing or treating them differently, and
Correct.
that's pretty disheartening for an A player.
And so when in a lot of my coaching with owners, I think what's really valuable is we know what winning and losing scores look like for crew
Yep,
leaders, for salespeople, for everything, even for marketing department or for HR department. Like it's not shocking to go through 12 people that are skilled salespeople before you find a hire that really should be working for you in your painting business. And that's 12 qualified people. So people go and they take the easy route of just hiring recruiters, and they're almost every single one of them is disappointed
sure.
because it takes time and energy and effort to put together that system. So this is a lot on process. I have other mistakes, a lot of other mistakes I made, but this is all still just process.
Yeah. Yeah, we've dove deep into process. We've touched on marketing and sales, and I would say we've covered a lot of mistakes in this. Just looking at marketing the wrong way, the volume of people you need to come through, looking at people the wrong way, looking at your business the wrong way. But yeah, we are deep. Let's come up with some more mistakes.
Okay, so another mistake is not focusing on profit first. So massive mistake in 2008 into 9, it almost put me out of business. Profit is the thing that keeps the machine going. It is what allows you to help people. It is not an evil thing. It is not a bad thing. In fact, I would challenge you to say it's the most important thing. And so if you're not looking at your business and operating your business in a framework that says, what is my profit, and highly focused on profit, you might be in for a world of hurt. And a lot of us talk about gross profit margin. Great thing to look at, but it's not profit. A lot of us talk about total revenue. Great thing to look at, but it's not profit. A lot of people talk about their CPE in marketing. A lot of people talk about their close rate in sales, but it's not profit. So, what I will say to people out there is profit beats everything else. What I mean by that is like I could have the most amazing close rate and still not be profitable. I could have this
Sure.
amazing CPE. You could be delivering me leads at such a low price and still not have profit. So, how do you get profit? You watch it things like a hawk. Every single week, you look at the numbers and you find out if you're profitable or not. And you charge more and spend less. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, what does charging more look like? It looks like having a higher charge rate than you think you need. It looks like increasing your charge rate and never decreasing it incrementally. It looks like learning to sell high value, low risk so that the market buys you. You just mentioned if you don't differentiate yourself, it's just a price war.
Sure.
And if you're going to be a profitable painter, you're going to lose the price war. So if you're not good in salesmanship, you definitely can't charge the most. And or even anywhere that makes you profitable, in my opinion. So these things work, they're interrelated, but charge more, find a way to charge more. In production, get better, be more efficient. So, what are you doing to be more efficient on the job? And I listen to Nick Slavic and different people, the Idaho painter, and there's others that are out there that people really follow that talk about the nuts and bolts of painting. And how can I pick up efficiency? Sometimes we're hyper focused on that. We think it picks us up more time than we realize, and we neglect hiring and sales and marketing. But it is important in production to be efficient and to be able to finish under your job hours. And then if you're not, you have to evaluate your production rates. So we start blaming the guys, but maybe the production rates are wrong. So the PCA is a good place to start. They've had production rates for 50 years that you can look at, and it's a good average for you to look at. But then I encourage you to time your people and to see where you're slower and where you're faster, and then adjust your production rate so that you're profitable. So charge rate, production rate, and then your spending. Get obsessed with your spending. I would look at every single thing you spend, look at all your credit card statements, look at all your chart of accounts, and just say, how could I save money here? People think I'm crazy, but I just did this with one of my clients. How can I save money here? And your brain is going to say, I can't. I have to buy that. I have to have that software. I have to do this. We can't operate without it. But it's not true. Your immediate reaction is not true. Then you have to say, if I had to save money here, what could I do? And you might get a little bit of a different response from yourself internally. But then it's probably going to say, no, we can't. We have to spend that money. And then you say, if someone put a gun to my head and said, you have to not spend that money there, but still have to operate, what could you do? You'll find something you can do, something small you can do. And if you do this again and again and again across the board, you'll be wildly profitable. And I call that diamond cutting. You're basically reshaping things, you're polishing, you're making it better and better and better. Spending less for something that's going to deliver at or above what you're currently getting your deliverables is just smart. It's your fiduciary responsibility as the owner to be profitable. People say, what's my job as the owner? Your job is to be profitable. It's your only damn job. Do your job. Go do your job. How much you spend on QuickBooks matters. How much your CPE matters. How much you're paying for trucks matters. How much you're spending in gas matters. Whether or not your jobs are going over or under on hours, it matters. It's all diamond cutting.
Yeah.
If you don't find it there, you'll be out of business. And that's why so many painters go out of business. So one mistake I had was not focusing on profit first for a long time. And I come up with one other big mistake, holding on to my personal job too long. So I sold for a long time. Surprise, surprise, since I teach sales. I estimated one time I did almost 16,000 residential sales appointments. So when I talk about what I'm doing in sales, it's not because, I wrote a book on it or something. It's because I do it. And what did I learn? I learned that I enjoyed it. I would get a dopamine hit every time I sold someone something. I felt like I was winning. I'm very competitive. It fit with that side of my personality. I also felt like I was carrying the business because I very much am a provider in a lot of different ways to family, friends, to my employees. So I felt like if I can go close and it's under my control, I can go win the game for us.
Sure.
And that probably helped shape me and build some of what we are, but it also held me back from having a bigger business much sooner. So I met a gentleman who was a roofing contractor, and he said to me, tell me about your business. And I was very proud of my business. I had just won an award for the Better Business Bureau in the state of Connecticut for the best customer service of all businesses, actually, in our state. So we were super proud of that Superior Service Award. And I met him at an event, and he said, tell me about your business. I'm very proud of it. And he's tell me about what you do in your business. And I'm like, I sell, and I'm selling this, I'm selling that, I'm selling this. And he said, okay, how much would you pay an amazing salesperson? And I think he said something like, would you pay $1,000 an hour to a salesperson? And that's like 40,000 bucks a week, right? And I said, no. And he said, well, would you pay $500 an hour to a great salesperson? And I'm doing the math and I'm saying, okay, that's 20 grand. That's $1 million a year. So no, I don't think a great I wouldn't pay him $1 million. And then he said, well, would you pay him $250 an hour? And I'm doing the math and I said, well, it's 500, right? Maybe they can make 500 grand, but I wouldn't rush to pay him that, right? And he said, so what you're saying is you're not that valuable. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, you're the best in Connecticut and you wouldn't pay so what would you pay someone at least $1 million to do? Would you pay him to paint? Would you pay him to be a crew leader? And he goes, there's one job that can make millions of dollars a year. It's owner. And he's like, why don't you go be the owner? So at that point, he was, I think, doing 18.5 million a year. And he was a local guy, Connecticut guy. Again, roofing is different. So it's a different profit margin that you're going to see in roofing than you will in painting. But long story short, a light bulb went off in my head for a guy who thought I knew everything about everything. I was like, whoa, I should probably get some salespeople. And then as I brought him in and started training him, something amazing happened. My second or third hire was a better salesperson than me. And that really was an aha moment.
Sure.
So without massive training, without massive industry knowledge, he was better than what I thought I was the best at. So it was humbling. So then I had to try to start to become good at being the owner. And so I didn't start being the owner until really late in this thing.
Man.
So I'm still learning to be the owner.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
learn to be the owner sooner and give up control of whatever job you think is so important that the business can't function without you, because it's the wrong way of viewing the business. Every single job in your business could be done better by somebody else as long as you can recruit them, hire them, train them, keep score, and also be humble enough to realize that.
Yeah.
And then you can really go places. So I held on to my job too long.
I love
Bad
that, man.
processes, didn't focus on profit, and held on to my job too long.
Those are three major mistakes, and we
But
don't.
yet I'm still here,
Yeah.
and I'm actually wildly successful. So what that tells you is there's some room, have some grace for yourself, and there's a lot of room to grow into this. The moment you start realizing that this could be your opus, meaning this thing that you just constantly get better at, this business, then I think it becomes fun. Like I'm hyper competitive. So for a long time, mentally, I always felt like I was behind. I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't good enough. We weren't where we need to be. And that's common for entrepreneurial people. And I learned to just once in a while look over my shoulder and say, hey, look at where you came from and what you're doing right now. And I do it in the property business now. I have quite a few properties. And I was having a conversation last week with my wife, and she said, where are we bringing this thing to? And I'm like, hundreds, like, and she's like, but do you ever look back? Because when I met you, you didn't have properties, And so,
That's what my wife does.
yeah.
She
And
says I'm bad at celebrating wins.
it's good to look back, because I mean, it keeps you in the right mindset to continue to win. So Tony Robbins often said, like, see things as they are, not better than they are, not worse than they are. I think it was Tony Robbins or something to that effect. And it's like, don't see it worse than it is, man. You're out there and you're trying to get better. You're listening to this damn podcast.
Yeah.
You're doing more than, just by listening to this podcast, you're doing more than 99% of your peers. So don't feel bad about wherever you're at. Get excited that you have the tools necessary to get better, and try to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't have to rewrite that history. But the moment I started thinking about things in terms of this is my opus and I've got time to get this right, it took the edge off. And I think I just became a better leader for the organization.
I love that. More of a long-term mindset.
Yeah.
Mark,
It's a
incredible.
lot of mistakes.
It's I mean the depth that you provided, incredibly helpful. As we wrap up this episode, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's some of my mistakes. We have to do mistakes too.
We I'm sure we'll weave in other mistakes and answers throughout the rest of the series, but I appreciate you, brother. That was huge. Thank you for sharing all that. I think our listeners will derive tremendous value from it, and I'm excited about the next one.
Great.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.